Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter, where I talk to guests, especially on Wednesdays, who have a story to share, whatever experience they have been through in their life, and really giving you an opportunity to maybe identify with what they have gone through and really know that there is this place of hope. And I am really excited for my guest tonight. But if this is your first time watching, make sure if you happen to be watching on YouTube, you click down that subscribe button. Or if you're watching on any of the streaming platforms like E360, Roku, Apple, Fire, Amazon, whatever it might be, add us into your favorites, your want to watch list, whatever it happens to be called, so that you don't miss another episode. Because on Mondays, we have guests who are advocates or professionals in the mental health space. And then Wednesdays is our Warrior Wednesdays. And again, I am very excited for my guest tonight to be able to share her story. So without further ado, Heather, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, I'm so thankful to be on here and talking to you. I love you so much.
Yay, I know, I'm so excited. Well, tell the audience a little bit about your story.
Sure. So in July of 2012, at around midnight on the 19th, someone entered the Aurora Theater with hate filled inside of them and brought a gun, and they killed 13 people inside of that theater that night. And my cousin Ashley was in the theater that night. She was pregnant, and she was with her 6-year-old daughter, Veronica. And unfortunately, my cousin Ashley, she was shot, and she's now paralyzed, but she also lost her unborn child, and her 6-year-old daughter, beautiful little Veronica, was killed that night as well. And it was hard for me because not only do I live in the city of Aurora, I was born and raised there. I raised my family there. I work for the city of Aurora. My whole community was affected, but to have it hit so close to home as having my immediate family and Ashley affected in such a big way, and to see just the trauma and feel the trauma that she was going through at that time. I really felt for everyone who lost their lives that night. Like, I didn't find out about Ashley even being in there until after I had seen it on the news that whole day. And I was already devastated just watching it because it was all over the news all day long.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I remember that day also. I lived in Aurora, not too far from there. And so I remember that night well too. And it was just like shock that it happened. And the extent or the amount of people that were killed that night, and how it all, how the story came out. Yeah.
Right. Because it was just like, I don't know, like we live in Colorado, and the only thing that happened before that was Columbine, like many, many years before. And even if you think about it, back then in 2012, all over the country, it was kind of a big shocker for everyone. That's probably why, I know that's why it was on the media. It was on all the news stations, and it's all that I heard on the radio every time I turned on the TV that day and for many days after. I just remember seeing, before I knew Ashley was there, like them scrolling the numbers at the bottom, like saying, oh, now there may be multiple people hurt. Then it goes up to there may be multiple people shot screen. Yeah. So when I found out that one of those numbers was my cousin, it just brought it to a whole nother level. I just remember screaming so loud when my mom called me and told me that, because I just couldn't believe it. That she was there. She was like, your cousin Ashley was there, and she was with Veronica, and Veronica didn't make it. And I don't know, my whole world exploded and my brain went numb, and it was hard.
Well, it was definitely one of those I don't think we're ever prepared for shootings in general, but just to have and when the names came up, I know that I went to school with somebody who died in the shooting also. And when her name popped up, I was like, oh my gosh, we literally just had debate class together.
Oh
And
my
it you
God.
don't realize like how many people it affected, and then also just in general being so close to it, living in Aurora and
Mhm.
having it in our city, I think was, like you said, that Columbine was the biggest thing that we had up to date, and that was huge too. But knowing that somebody had access to get into a theater where we as humans feel pretty safe and not
Mhm.
like because it was a Batman, the premiere of Batman, and my if I remember correctly, it was during one of um the action oh
Right,
my
I like, from what I remember, it was, like, during the beginning, and, like, a lot of the people had thought it was part of the movie, or that
yeah,
there were fireworks or things like that. Ashley doesn't really even remember very much of it, but I just, well, because you wouldn't expect it to be anything like a shooting, that's for sure.
yeah,
And I'm just like, I've still, when I think back to that day, it's, it's hard because, like, obviously anyone, even if you're once removed, can't fathom how you felt that day. But, like, even if you are, I mean, like, if you were in there, but even when you look back on it, you feel, even if you were just somebody who was in the community and in Aurora or whatever, or had a ticket that night or didn't go, or watching the news, you remember feeling that shock yourself.
yeah,
So it affects so many more people than, it's a whole huge ripple effect when these tragedies happen. It really is. My family went through a lot of family dynamics, and just the way our family was a really close knit, tight family. Me and Ashley are from, our parents are from a family of 13 kids. And we all that day went up to the hospital to be with her. And I just remember gathering in the room, and we weren't able to see Ashley because she was in critical condition. And it was so strange because my aunts called this meeting because, like, teenagers do, and like people do in this world where there's social media, and it was on social media that that had happened. Cousins started posting, my cousin was in there and she's injured, and Veronica didn't make it. We didn't know about her being pregnant and losing the child yet, but my aunts were like, all of a sudden they said, we just want to tell everyone right now, don't listen to the media, don't watch any news, don't talk to the media, don't believe anything you hear. And it was just, after, I don't remember how many days because everything is a blur, when it had came out in the newspaper that she was pregnant. And it was kind of hurtful for us that our family didn't tell us that she
mhm,
was pregnant, because, like, for me, I felt like I could have prayed for her child. But I don't know if it was their culture or, them being protective of her. And they, looking back now, I give them grace, and I know that everyone heals in their own way. And being in the media spotlight is so scary. Like, it's all over the media, and your whole story is all over the media. So I can see that. But you know, some of our family, and it was new to the victims, I mean, the first responders, like the advocates too, like, they sent victim advocates to the hospital, but they were new at this. And, like, I can imagine them being intimidated coming through a whole room full of people. They didn't really talk to us one on one, but, like, some of our side of the family was like, those victim advocates are there for Ashley. We weren't hurt. It's not our grief, and some of them didn't take advantage of it. And I did, thankfully, but it's like, and then some of them still now are like, why do you talk about it still? Why are you keeping the pain alive? But with what I do on the foundation and what we're doing is we're wanting to honor those that were taken from us, and really advocate for the healing of everybody, and advocate for the fact that if you're affected, you should give yourself grace to feel hurt too, and to go get that help. But yeah, so just kind of the way it kind of triggered our family dynamics to go a little off kilter. I thought we were the only family that went through that, and it wasn't until 2015 when I started meeting with other survivors and other families and the board, and realizing that a lot of them have stories too about how that kind of tragedy or trauma, or any trauma really, it's like if you already have things in your life before a trauma, it gets magnified when it happens.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, as you went along and these things were coming out, and I know you said that, I mean, oftentimes when you have a trauma, especially this large, happen, it's very shocking and you're not sure how to process or how to cope. And there's so many emotions that go into that. And then you kind of shifting into this role within the foundation, which we'll definitely talk about too. But what was that thing that kind of guided you into this space? Like, how did you know that you wanted to talk about it and you wanted to maybe find people that were feeling the same as you were?
Yeah, well, I often think about that question, and I started to realize it really did start the day that the tragedy happened. I remember driving up to the hospital in my van and crying so hard, like out of my head, not knowing what to do. And I stopped at a church. I haven't gone to church for years and years and years, but like something just pulled me to like just stop over there. And as I pulled in, I'm crying, and it's an empty church because church wasn't in session, but a car did pull up, and out of the car came a priest. And I went up to the priest and I just started bawling him and telling him how I was feeling and what had happened. And he comforted me so much. And then when I got to the hospital, this sounds so, unreal, but when I had got to the hospital, when I was walking towards the hospital, there was another priest there. And I, like, one of my cousins was outside too, and like I stopped him and I was like telling him why we're there, and he kind of like talked to us and like comforted us. And and then just I feel like it's because my heart was torn right open that I didn't know any better than to just let it out and be vulnerable. And I just kept my heart open. And when I would talk about what had happened to my family or how I was feeling, then I noticed that more people opened up to me too and gave me that love back. And so I started realizing that, I wanted to like figure out a way to make sure that Veronica wasn't forgotten, and that the survivors were, remembered, and just to see all of the notes of love and support that came into our community that day and the day following. Like the very next night, there was a makeshift vigil across the street from the theater, and there was hundreds of people that came and prayed with us, and came together and supported us. And then the city had a vigil where I remember looking out on all the sea of people around for the vigil that wanted to support us. And my children, I have 5 kids, and they were like scared and devastated. And like my kids were usually such happy kids, and they seemed so upset. And I just was like trying to tell them, there are people out here who love us, and there are people who care, and they might be strangers, but there is more love in the world than hate. And I just wanted to prove that to them. I was like, there's got to be some way to prove that to them, that there's more good in the world than bad. And that's when I work at the city of Aurora as well. And I asked one of the city leaders if we were having a memorial yet. And that's when they said, well, we got a group together, but we have been having a hard time raising money. And so that's when I had went home, and I had been talking on the phone to my aunt, and two of my daughters were listening to me, and I said they need money for the memorial. And my daughters were like, oh, well, how about we have a lemonade stand? And I was like, well, we should ask the board if that's okay. We went to the board meeting, and we told them our idea, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, you can. And the lemonade stand just culminated into this beautiful, amazing thing that just was inspired by everyone around us, and our community came. And at that time, my cousin Ashley had shown me Veronica's kindergarten picture. She was supposed to graduate in 2024, which would be next year. But on the other side of her graduation picture, it said, I want to be a police officer when I grow up. And I had told our chief of police to make sure that a bunch of police officers would come to the lemonade stand. And what he did was even better. They had a lights and procession to the lemonade stand, and then all of the officers stood up and they took the oath for Veronica and in her name, and they made her an honorary police officer, and they presented my cousin Ashley with a badge. And just like seeing how that all came together, and the whole community was there, and we started really raising money for the memorial. It was like a really big first fundraiser. Was like, I never want to stop doing this. I just want to like go towards the light, I feel like, and keep showing my kids and, everyone around that, everyone supports one another.
That's amazing. I mean, just like from a lemonade stand, right? Like it's a simple gesture from your kids that, what can I do? I can have a lemonade stand, and then it becomes this big, so much bigger. That's just incredible.
Oh my gosh, I love the way you said that, because I had never thought of that aspect of it, because it's so fitting if you think about it. Because one of the things I always say about, how I wish the world could be, and like Veronica was only 6 years old when her life was cut short, but like she lived her young life with just such love and innocence and enjoying everything around her. And she was happy all the time. And everyone that was a friend, everyone she met was a friend. And you're right. Like a lemonade stand is like that kid-like innocence of something so simple and kindness and makes you happy. It's, it was really the perfect way to honor her and like to remind people to be that way.
Yeah. That's so amazing. And I want to also talk about the 720 Memorial Foundation and how you really started getting involved there from, the lemonade stand, right? And just growing higher and higher. We are going to take a short sponsored break. And then once we come back, we will talk more about the foundation and what you guys are doing, which is all amazing. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
This is Rico No Suave from the Rico No Suave Talk Show. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time here on E360 TV. Make sure you go under positive vibrations. Yes, we are here. I'll see you guys soon, darling.
And like that, we're back. So if you happen to be just joining us, make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, you click down that subscribe button, or if you're on any of the other streaming services, that you add us into your watch wish list, whatever you happen to call it. But I am talking with one of my friends, Heather Dearman. We have been talking about her story and her cousin who was shot in the Aurora Theater Shooting in 2012, who also lost her 6-year-old daughter and unborn child. And it is one of those stories that you never imagine that your family is going to experience. And as we were also talking, is that these type of events affect people in very different ways. Heather's journey was really the outpouring of being vulnerable and talking to anyone that will really listen, and then having your kids want to be a part of being able to help with this committee that they had put together to be able to have a foundation or a memorial for those that were lost in the theater shooting. And as simple as a lemonade stand is, and how that grew to this bigger thing and ultimately got you more involved in the foundation itself. So I would love to hear a little bit more about the 720 Memorial and what you do specifically, and like how you really got in there.
Yeah, so as we started raising money for the memorial, it seemed like more mass shootings started happening. And we started, whenever a shooting would happen, we would make a banner for that community and have people sign the banner, because that's what people did for us in 2012. And we know how much that meant to us. Well, once we raised enough money for the memorial, which our artists chose to base it off of 1,000 paper cranes that were sent to us in 2012. And you'll have to read our story on our website about the whole memorial, because it's a beautiful concept. But instead of sending banners, we decided to do the Paper Crane Peace Project. And what we do is we fold paper cranes and have people write notes of love and support on them. We collect them also, they can be mailed in, but we put them on wreaths, and we send those wreaths to the communities that have been affected by similar tragedy. Sadly, we've sent way too many of them. But it's our way of paying the love forward that was given to us. And we, our memorial was finished. And so we realized that we didn't want to stop doing this work, that we wanted to advocate for the long-term healings of all victims of mass tragedy. The whole survivor definition, meaning injured, survivors, first responders, community, family members, it's a whole ripple effect. They deserve long-term mental health help, because 11 years ago, some people might not have wanted to talk about it, but something could trigger them now, and we need the help to be there for them now. Every year we still do a midnight vigil, and we've added a couple of candles in the past couple of years because of people that were at the theater and completed suicide, because they, we wish that the mental health help would have been for them there. We also have, after the midnight vigil, every Saturday after that, we have a more celebratory thing where we have the Heroes Run that goes from the theater to the memorial, more celebratory event with booths, mental health booths. And you were there this year, and we thank you so much for that. It's a beer fest and a chalk art festival. A way for the community to come together every year. The midnight vigil is remembrance and solemn, and then we follow it up with something more of community being resilient and showing that, we let love win. But our foundation and our board members also started a coalition called the Survivors of Tragedy Outreach Program. It's brand new. There's 18 organizations that are a part of us, and a lot of them are grassroots organizations born out of tragedy. We're trying to do best practices and be a support, because it's hard when you're a survivor. You know this. so you've had a trauma happen to you, and you go out there and you take action, and you started an organization, and you like spread the word. And there'll be some times when you're not feeling your best self and need to take self-care of yourself. And so we feel like if all of our organizations came together, we can pick up that support part when the other ones are feeling kind of down. So, but it's also to support survivors so that they have a place to go to learn, how to cope through different years of milestones. We hope to educate the media to be more trauma informed. And we come to conferences like we are at today. Me and my COO, Jansen, we're at the Eradicate Hate Summit here in Pittsburgh. And it's our first time here. It's their third summit. It's amazing. It's a bunch of, government agencies, practitioners. There's survivors here this year, but they give you working groups with deliverables of things that, you all just come up with, and you network with each other, and you talk about how can we make this world a better place? How can we stop hate before it stops? It's just been amazing to see that there's work being done, because sometimes you don't feel that way when you see these things keep happening. And sometimes, since we've been doing this work for so long, you kind of like, is what I'm doing making a difference? But as long as you're planting the seed and you keep going, it will get there. And I don't know. But the bottom line for me, just even when being like conferences like this, or being at the event where you were at, is just, seeing that just being kind to somebody or asking them about their story, it can make a difference. And even if it's in just one person's life, it's worth it.
Yeah. And I know there's so much goodness in what you just said too. I think that there's a lot behind the being a survivor, like however that loss is, whether it is to a shooting, it is to suicide, it's to like somebody that has cancer, or just, an unknown or quick death. It's a different type of survivor. Like the emotions that you have may be really similar to like losing a grandparent, or losing a family member to old age, but it's different. It really is I feel like a whole different animal. And
Right.
Understanding that, of course, like neither one of us really want to understand it, but I think it's important to have those conversations. And I love the fact that you're doing all these things and really like trying to get people to learn and understand they need to take care of themselves. They also need that mental health support, and you don't have to go at it alone. Like 720 Memorial Foundation is there to be able to support you. And we all have gone through this differently, but similar. And if we can come together to really talk about that and have the safe space that you are helping to provide, I think that is just huge and amazing. And I loved being at the run this year, so definitely coming back for sure.
Yes, you will definitely be invited back. I hope you got to make a lot of good connections too for your organization, and I think it was like a perfect fit.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that was actually the first time I've been to the memorial. So I thought that was really cool to be able, and it's beautiful. If you get a chance and you're in Aurora, Colorado, go check out the memorial, which is again across the street from the Aurora Theater. But I also want to ask you, because this was a long process. The trial went for a really long time, and I'm sure there may be, and I don't know, just a question that's coming up to my head, but since it was so long, like how did that affect you, or what did you notice, or did other people tell you?
Well, I did notice, because the trial was going on, and it didn't end till like 2015. And 2015 was when I had asked about if there was any movement on the memorial. And I remember her saying, we haven't been doing a lot of fundraising, but then it clicked in my head, that's because the trial's going on. So of course no one could focus on it because the board is made up of family members and survivors. Our city officials were part of it, but they just sat back as advisors. And so once the trial ended, and the lemonade stand was right after the trial ended in September 5th. So I can't remember what exact day, but so I noticed that it took a while for people to, like, it's kind of a closure. It's not a closure, but it is. Another thing I would say about the trial is, for me, it's interesting for me because for some reason I told myself right when they started talking about it, and about, like, they were very good about giving anyone who considered themselves a victim, like family members could put in victim impact statements, whatever, but they were trying to ask and survey if you wanted the death penalty, or them to go for the death penalty or not the death penalty. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to let my heart or my mind focus too much on it, because I felt like that was something I couldn't control. And so I didn't really even try to feel like I wanted it one way or another. I just knew that my cousin was suffering and I just wanted to support her and hug her. I did go to the day that she testified, and it was so hard because she had to testify to something that she hadn't even told her family yet. But I do know also, like, everyone really loved the comfort dogs. Like, that was their favorite part of the trial whenever I hear anything about it. I know that everyone, including me, thought our judge was amazing. And the jurors, I mean, I feel for them so much because I feel like they're survivors of this now too, because they had to see every piece of evidence and they weren't allowed to talk about it while it was going on. Can you imagine not getting mental health help while that was going on? So afterwards, we got introduced to 4 of the women there, and they heard about us wanting a memorial, and they were like, we are willing to help you go on news interviews and stuff to help you raise money. But they didn't want their faces shown because they were concerned, because it was a controversy over the outcome of it. But for them to do that was just so that was so amazing to me. Like, to me, they are courageous as well, and to me, they're heroes too. There's just so much about a trial that, even in this conference here today, they did talk a lot about the judicial system, because this conference is in Pittsburgh because of the Tree of Life Synagogue, and their trial just ended a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. And I know, I mean, your cousin is still alive, but you said that she's paralyzed. How is she, I mean, like, fully paralyzed, or how is she doing?
She was considered paraplegic because she's paralyzed from the chest down, but thankfully she has the use of her arms, so she's able to drive a modified van. She's been going to school off and on. Like, she has her ups and downs throughout the years where she's in school and then not, in school and then not. But to me, she's just a hero just for getting up every day. From the minute it started, for her to want to, like, get up and get out of bed every day, it was huge to me. And, like, because of her injuries, she's continually having setbacks and surgeries. Like, even recently she was hospitalized for something, but she's right now in school. And I'm so happy to report that only just a week ago she's very shy, and she always has been, and she hasn't wanted to tell her story because everybody tells their story when it's the right time for them. And if she never did, I would totally understand as well. But she's in a course where she had to write a paper, and she shared that paper with me, and it was very vulnerable. And I am just so proud of her. Like, I feel like that might be the first time that she's, like, shown any part of her heart to, I mean, they're people in her class, but basically strangers. And I think that's a huge step. Like, I've been wishing and wanting that for her because, a lot of the survivors meet all the time, and she hasn't really gone to any of that. Like, she only recently started going to vigils a couple of years ago. She comes to the beer fest, but not really connected with survivors. So it's like, there's just so much huge healing that goes on when you share your story It really is. But you only have to find out for yourself. I mean, I have 5 kids and they all went on their own different journeys throughout the years too. And back then I might have been worried about them. And like my oldest daughter, she has come totally 360 into this beautiful person right now where she's very strong, and she's starting to advocate for survivors as well and telling her story. And that just happened this year, and it's been 11 years. And way back then I was so worried about her, and I was crying, and I was like, wanting her just to see all the love around. I would invite her to our events and she wouldn't want to go. And I would just want to say to anyone who's in that position right now, they'll get through it, and they'll get through it in their own time. I've seen it happen. It's just keep loving on them, just keep hugging them. And as long as I think, my children seeing me too, doing what I do, as long as I keep up the hope and the faith, they'll get there.
Yeah. And what does your cousin think about you doing the work that you are doing?
She loves it. I've always made sure to ask her every time, if somebody wants to use Veronica's picture or whatever. And she's always like, yes. She's like, she wants to keep Veronica's name alive and out there. And, she feels like Veronica was such a big, huge heart. She was just a wonderful, wonderful little girl. And it's like now her love is touching the world in an even bigger way and touching more people, and so, she really, even actually recently, me and Megan were at a Survivor event, and Ashley was like, you're at a Survivor event? Do you know when the next one is? So like, I'm hoping to maybe soon, like she'll join us. So yeah.
That's awesome. And I know from my own experience, right? Like my family's on a very different journey than I am. And I'm the only one that outwardly talks about my sister all the time. And so I know and understand like the different dynamics behind how that journey unfolds. And I think it's amazing that you have included your children plus, the family that wants to be a part of it. Right. And then Ashley, and asking her and making sure that what you're doing along the way, if she wants to be a part of it or not be a part of it, and being able to share Veronica's story and keep her memory alive. I just think it's incredible. And I know when you and I met the very first time, I was like, oh, so connect. Like I loved.
Me too. You had that same story as me, where there is part of the family that doesn't like it, and then kind of almost like makes me feel ashamed and like nervous about doing it, because they're like, why do you keep talking about it? Or like, it's not your place or something like that. And so it's so hard. But when you connect with other people and you like make a difference in other people's lives too, and it starts reminding you that you're doing the right thing. Like it's your story too. When you have trauma in your family, it affects you. And so you have the right to tell that story as well. And so when you were telling me that too, I was like, I have the same.
Yeah. It is, it's like a club that you don't want to be a part of, but once you're a part of the club, you're like, wow, this is such a unique experience. And when you can connect with people on that level, like it helps that, or at least I believe that it helps with the grief and loss journey, and being able to have those conversations, no matter how long it's been, like we're all on different levels. We're all at different points. And I think like having, especially the memorial that people can go to and be able to, whether you're just walking around it looking, like you still can share experiences and stories. And I saw the paper cranes, although I'm not very good at making them. I thought it was such a cool, unique idea, and being able to write a message. And my son was with me, so he was able to write a message. And I think especially what the foundation does is really important, and keeping it in Aurora where it was is just so cool that that's the space that you can go back to. And I think it reminds us also, those of us that have lived in Colorado all of our life. It reminds us of what happened, but how we can also celebrate the lives that were lost.
Thank you. That's exactly the feeling we wanted it to have, because we wanted it to be a memorial that honored our loved ones, but we didn't want it to be sad, and we wanted it to be a place where you could feel hope and healing, because we believe that the ones that we lost are looking down on us, and they want us to live our lives in the fullest. They love us, and we need to carry on that love. And so we were hoping that people who visit our memorial, even if they don't know what it's there for, would feel that sense of peace. And also, a lot of people say, why is it so close to where it happened? And it's like, that's because we want to overtake the space over there that was evil, and like this one is bigger. And every year when people visit for the big events, or even if you're just walking through there by yourself on a day, it's like you're blessing that space, and you're putting your positive energy there. And so it's like, it's magical when you go there. So thank you for saying that. That's exactly what we hope people would feel.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like, even because we were kind of like on the street where I was at, and then just walking in, I was like, I gotta go look at it. And walking in there, you just get this sense of like safety also. Like there's a sense of safety and sense of celebration. And I know that making sure that that's like how it's supposed to come off. Like, I'm glad that I got
It's like surrounded by a berm. We had like 4 artists that were the finalists, and one of them said it's like there's a hug around you.
Yeah,
it really, and there's like also there in each one of the sculpted cranes, because we wanted it to represent our community, and our artists had the idea of giving us, because there's 83 of them. He gave us 83 canisters, and we collected notes from the community and put them in the canisters, and then he sealed them in each of the cranes. So it's like each of the cranes has a soul. And so the ones in the 13 in the middle, we gave the canisters to each family, and so they have put what they want in there. And so there's just a lot of little hidden gems in there. And the paper crane piece box that's there, that's a little lending library with the paper cranes. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize all of that was there too. That's really cool.
It's really amazing. A Columbine survivor built that for us.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it just like has a whole, now that I think about it, like it's not like the memorial was built and it's just there and it's done. It's like it keeps giving back.
Yeah. It definitely, and every time, I mean, every year, especially when you do the walk and people are able to come in and experience it for themselves, and like have those conversations with people that knew about it, people that were a part of it, people that had lost people in the shooting. It's just so wonderful to be able to have that space and have you do that every single year. So
I know I've walked through there like randomly because I work in the building too, but like I always inevitably meet somebody walking in there, and I'll say to them like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for visiting. Is this your first time?" And then they'll tell me a story of their grief or loss, and how they feel that hope there, and it just makes me so happy.
That's amazing. And one thing that I do want to ask you about, because I know that you also advocate a lot for mass shootings in general. I know you said you're at this conference, Eradicate Hate. What are the main things, like, I don't what the question that's formulating here, but like, what are like the things that you talk about the most with people? Is it like that grief and loss? Is it actually like shootings in general, or what are you finding yourself talking about the most?
I really find myself talking about the most just meeting people where they're at and just connecting with them, and just like talking about how small acts of kindness can make a difference, and just about the humanity of everything. Because a lot of times when mass shootings are talked about, it kind of gets political, and that makes it hard. But if you bring it back around to the human element of it, I think everyone can connect. I think that's why our paper crane peace project works so well. Like we've had Charles Schwab, who lets us do their volunteer week every year, and they give us grants, because I remember them calling us and saying, that's everyone feels like they want to do something, but they don't know what to do. But the paper cranes are something that is an act of love and an act of healing. And so that's what I find myself talking to people about, and they usually will share their story of some kind of trauma that they've had. Like, I usually hear a lot about, I lost my father, but I know it's not the same. They'll tell me, your cousin had it worse. And I'll remind them that there's no hierarchy in grief, that everyone feels pain in the same way when they have a loss. And we can connect in that way. And, I just think it makes people realize how connected we all are, and how we are all one. So I think that's the thing I talk to people about the most on a one-on-one basis. But usually when I speak on a panel or anything or something like that, I always tell the story of, our memorial and how it came to be, and just how more about the community and the community coming together, just to make people realize that, there's so much good in the world. There really is.
Yeah. And I love how you said that too, is there's no hierarchy in what's worse or not, right? Like, we all experience things very differently, and we really have to honor that space for anybody that's going through grief or loss. And there's never something that's worse than the other, or it's not about that, right? It's about that connection. And I think that is just really incredible how you shared that too. I would love for you to tell everybody, if they want to find out more, where can they go?
We are on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't totally recall what are they called, hashtags are. But our website is 7-20memorial.org, www.7-20memorial.org. And so we have a lot of information there. It talks about our memorial and some of the things we do, how you can get involved with the Paper Crane Peace Project. Our Stop Survivors of Tragedy outreach program has just started, and it's in the works. So we don't really have anything on our website about that yet, but we definitely are spreading the word. So on there, if you contact us and you're interested in learning more about that too, you can ask about that.
Awesome. Well, I am so thankful for you coming on and sharing your story. And I know being in the middle of an event that you're at. So
yeah, and the time change is 3 hours different.
Oh no. You're like, what time do I have to be on here? Right. But we'll get some rest. But I really appreciate you again coming on, and we'll definitely catch up when you get back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome.
All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. Again, on Wednesdays, I bring the warriors in, those that have a story, a journey that they've been through, an experience, and really giving you the chance to possibly identify something within their experience that you can really know that there is hope. And I mean, when Heather and I met, it was just like connection. And I think what 720 Foundation is doing is incredible, and keeping those stories alive, but also having this conversation about grief and loss, and how mass shootings can affect, and it has that ripple effect. It doesn't just affect one person. It affects so many people around us. And this simple lemonade stand, I love that, because sometimes we don't know how we can help. But if we listen to those that are around us, really specifically our children also, they have some pretty brilliant ideas, and it can be this small thing that leads into this big thing. And ultimately, the memorial is there. I love that it keeps going. It's not just something that was built. It absolutely is something that continues on its own journey, and being able to build that as the years go on. And so I hope that this story is something that you can take and share. But ultimately, as a reminder, I do this show every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then we also come live on Mondays at 11 a.m. But this is, I'm like, what is the date? This will be the final show for the month of September, which is National Suicide Awareness Month. So Heather and I just talked about that too, is when you possibly don't have the support around you and you may be a survivor. There has been several losses to suicide from this ripple effect of this one event, this theater shooting that happened. And so how can we come together as a community and really support those that are struggling, that are in need, that maybe feel like they're completely alone and ultimately choose to take their life? But we, with BCC Evolution, which is my nonprofit, that's what we do. We help educate people on how to help those people and give them those tools, the information, the resources about mental health and suicide prevention. So as my last thing that I want to say for September, we also talked about funding. BCC Evolution, all of our programs have to have funding behind them. So go sign up today as a warrior for mental health with only $19 or more per month. All of those go to our 3 programs, which are awareness, conversation, and education. The biggest chunk goes to education because I wasn't educated before my sister passed. And I'm learning so much, especially through the collaborations that we have made. And that's what we give back through BCC Evolution to all of you. So go sign up. If you can't remember all of that, just go to bccevolution.org and then click on the Warrior for Mental Health tab. Whatever you happen to do, make sure you join me next week on Monday. I have another amazing guest. And I will see you then. Have a good night.